The towering glass walls of Langford International shimmered under the morning sun. Inside, tension brewed like a storm trapped behind closed doors. The boardroom clock struck 9. 11 executives sat in silence, glancing toward the head of the table, an empty chair reserved for Ava Langford, the company's CEO. But it wasn't just any meeting. This was the quarterly review, a high-stakes session that determined the future of departments, projects, and people. At the opposite end of the table sat Marcus Hale, the youngest board member, impeccably dressed and visibly irritated. His silver watch caught the light as he tapped his pen impatiently. "She's late again," Marcus muttered, his voice low but edged with contempt. "Do you all realize we've been sitting here for nearly an hour?" Linda Chen, the CFO, sighed quietly. "Maybe she's caught in traffic. You know Ava doesn't usually—" Marcus cut her off. "Traffic? This is the 3rd time this quarter. She treats this place like a personal playground. If her father was still alive, he'd never tolerate this." His words hung heavy in the air. Everyone knew Marcus was ambitious, too ambitious. He'd been circling Ava's leadership ever since the founder, Robert Langford, had passed away 6 months ago. Ava, his only daughter, had inherited both the company and the enormous weight of her father's legacy. At 10:02 a.m., the double doors finally opened. Ava Langford stepped in. Her white suit contrasted sharply with the dark wood around her, and her calm demeanor immediately shifted the energy of the room. She carried no laptop, no assistant, just a leather folder in one hand and quiet authority in her gaze. "Good morning, everyone," she said evenly, as though she hadn't just kept the city's most powerful executives waiting for 2 hours. Marcus stood abruptly, a thin smile masking his irritation. "Morning? It's practically noon, Ava. Some of us have other commitments." Ava smiled faintly, closing the folder before placing it on the table. "I understand, Marcus. I appreciate your patience." He scoffed. "Patience? This isn't patience, it's disrespect. You've wasted everyone's time." She met his stare, calm as glass. "Time," she said, "is valuable, which is why I spent mine ensuring this meeting would be worth yours." A few heads turned, curious. Marcus frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" Ava took a breath and opened the folder. "Before this meeting, I spent 2 hours with one of our longtime employees, Evelyn Brooks. She's been with us for 15 years, quietly cleaning these offices long before either of us arrived. She came to me this morning in tears." The room went silent. "She told me she'd been harassed and threatened by someone in senior management. She said she'd reported it twice, and both times her complaints were buried." Marcus folded his arms. "And that required you to cancel a board meeting?" Ava didn't flinch. "It required me to investigate why those reports never reached HR. I found the answer." She slid a printed report across the table. "Every complaint was signed off and dismissed by your division, Marcus. The same division responsible for the inflated maintenance budgets." A murmur rippled across the table. Marcus blinked. "What are you implying?" "I'm not implying," she said coolly. "I'm stating. The same signatures appear on falsified invoices, payments authorized to fake vendors. All roads lead to your department." His voice rose. "You're accusing me of fraud? That's outrageous." Ava leaned forward, her tone steady but sharp. "Outrageous is a senior executive exploiting company funds and intimidating employees to stay quiet." Linda Chen looked through the documents, her eyes widening. "These figures, they match the missing quarterly funds." Marcus slammed his hand on the table. "You're doing this to embarrass me in front of the board." Ava's reply was soft but deadly clear. "No, Marcus. I'm doing this to protect the company my father built." For the first time, his confidence faltered. He looked around for support but found none. The others avoided his gaze, whispering among themselves. Ava stood. "You see, Marcus, when I made you wait, it wasn't because I was late. It was because I was gathering proof. While you were counting minutes, I was counting every missing dollar." Her words hit like thunder. She continued, "This meeting is not postponed. It's now an emergency session. Effective immediately, Marcus Hale is suspended, pending internal investigation." Gasps filled the room. Marcus's face went pale. "You don't have that authority." "I do," Ava interrupted. "The board granted it after the last restructuring, the one you voted for." For once, Marcus was speechless. Ava gathered her papers, her composure unbroken. "I may have made you wait, Marcus, but remember this. Sometimes people arrive late because they're busy, uncovering what others hoped would stay hidden." She turned to the board. Let's proceed with integrity. We owe it to this company and everyone who believes in it. And with that, the woman he tried to humiliate had just turned the entire room against him. The clock ticked softly above them, and for the first time, Marcus realized time wasn't on his side anymore. By the next morning, Langford International was a building divided. Every whisper in the hallway carried Ava Langford's name. Some praised her courage, others predicted her downfall. The financial press hadn't caught on yet, but rumors were spreading fast. A CEO accusing her own board member of fraud wasn't something that stayed quiet for long. In her 12th floor office, Ava stood by the window overlooking the city skyline. Her reflection was calm, but her thoughts churned beneath the surface. The sun was rising, golden light pouring into the glass walls. She had slept barely 2 hours. The decision to suspend Marcus Hale had been necessary, but it had also declared war. Her assistant, Nina, entered carrying 2 cups of coffee. "You didn't go home last night, did you?" Ava smiled faintly. Would have just stared at the ceiling anyway. Nina placed the coffee down. The audit team started early. They're already digging through Marcus's files. Legal's reviewing contracts from the last 3 quarters. "Good," Ava said, flipping open her planner. The truth needs to surface before Marcus spins his own version. As if on cue, the phone on her desk buzzed. Nina glanced at the screen. "It's the communications director. She says Marcus just called a press meeting in the lobby. 10 minutes from now." Ava exhaled slowly. Of course he did. She grabbed her blazer and headed for the door. Downstairs, the marble-floored lobby was packed with reporters, cameras flashing like lightning. Marcus stood at a podium with his lawyer beside him, his charm polished and his confidence restored. He looked like a man playing the victim. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus began, voice strong and rehearsed. "Yesterday, I was blindsided by false accusations made by Miss Ava Langford, our CEO. She's attempting to tarnish my name to distract from her own failures in leadership. This is nothing but a power grab." Reporters leaned forward. Flashes went off. Marcus continued. "For years I've dedicated myself to this company. I was Robert Langford's most trusted partner. And now his daughter, someone who inherited authority she didn't earn, has chosen to publicly defame me." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Then a new voice cut through. "That's not true." Every head turned. Ava walked in, calm and collected, security escorting her toward the front. She didn't look at Marcus until she reached the podium beside him. "Mr. Hale," she said, "you're absolutely right about one thing. My father did trust you. That's what makes your betrayal worse." Gasps echoed. Cameras flashed. Ava continued, her tone sharp but steady. "I have full confidence in the ongoing investigation. I will not respond to lies or theatrics. What I will do is protect this company, its employees, and its legacy from corruption." Marcus clenched his jaw. "You're grandstanding, Ava. You don't have proof." She turned slightly, holding up a folder. "Actually, I do. The board and our auditors have already reviewed preliminary evidence of falsified invoices and shell company payments, all authorized under your division." Marcus's smile faltered, but he kept his composure. "You can't just wave papers and call them truth." Ava stepped closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "You think I'd confront you in front of the press without being sure? Watch your next step carefully." For a flicker of a second, Marcus's eyes betrayed fear. But he quickly masked it. He straightened his tie, forced a smirk, and faced the cameras again. "I welcome any investigation," he said, "because when the truth comes out, everyone will see who's really lying." He stormed off, leaving reporters shouting questions and cameras turning toward Ava. She didn't stay to answer. She simply nodded at security and walked back toward the elevators, her calm never breaking. Back in her office, she finally allowed herself to exhale. Nina followed her in, shaking her head. "He's trying to make you look unstable." "I know," Ava said quietly. "He's good at manipulation. That's how he's lasted this long. So what now?" "Now," Ava replied, sitting down and opening a new file. "We finish what we started. The audit team needs full access to his personal authorization codes. Every transaction from the last year." Nina nodded. "I'll make it happen." Hours later, Linda Chen, the CFO, entered holding a USB drive. "Ava, you need to see this." She plugged it into the computer. A series of transactions appeared, small payments, spread across months, all routed through maintenance accounts. Each one carried Marcus Hale's signature. Ava's expression hardened. How much in total? Linda hesitated. Nearly 2.4 million. The room fell silent. That's not sloppiness, Ava said softly. That's theft. She leaned back, staring at the ceiling. He thought I wouldn't notice. He thought making me wait would make me look weak. But while he was counting minutes, I was counting evidence. Linda gave a faint smile. You're your father's daughter, Ava. Ava nodded, though her eyes betrayed exhaustion. He taught me that time reveals everything, even the things people try hardest to hide. As she stared out the window, the city lights flickered below, reflections dancing on the glass. The real battle hadn't even started yet. Marcus Hale wasn't done, and neither was she. By the time the sun dipped behind the skyline, the war between Ava Langford and Marcus Hale had spread beyond the walls of Langford International. Every major business outlet in the city was sniffing around for a headline. Rumors were swirling. The youngest board member accused of embezzlement, the CEO under pressure, the company's legacy hanging in the balance. But Ava wasn't reading the papers. She was too busy uncovering the truth. Her office lights burned long after everyone else had gone home. On her desk were open files, audit reports, and a steaming cup of untouched tea. She stared at her computer screen, reviewing the evidence line by line. Marcus Hale wasn't stupid. He'd built a reputation as a strategist, someone who could turn numbers into power. But arrogance had made him sloppy. Every fake invoice he'd approved was signed digitally, and Ava's auditors had tracked them to a hidden offshore account. The door opened quietly. Linda Chen stepped in, holding a small flash drive. We found this in his assistant's drawer, she said softly. Encrypted. Took us hours to open it. Ava accepted it and plugged it into her laptop. What appeared on the screen made her pulse quicken. Dozens of email exchanges between Marcus and a consulting firm, one that didn't exist on any registry. The tone of the messages was smug, calculating. Keep approving the maintenance budgets. I'll move the transfers quietly. She'll never suspect a thing. And 2 more quarters and we're clear. Langford will never find the missing millions. Ava's fingers tightened on the mouse. He was bragging about it, she whispered. Linda nodded grimly. He thought he was untouchable. But there's more. The firm he used, it's registered under a shell company owned by his brother-in-law. He's been laundering company funds through family ties. Ava stared at the screen, her jaw tightening. Then we have him. That night, Ava called an emergency session of the board. This time with no press, no leaks, just 12 people in a soundproof room. When Marcus arrived, he looked almost too confident. His tailored navy suit, slicked-back hair, and charming grin were weapons he'd used for years. Still playing detective, Ava? He said lightly, taking his seat. I hope this meeting's actually on time. Ava didn't answer. She waited until everyone was seated, then nodded to Linda. The lights dimmed slightly as a projector displayed the email screenshots. This, Ava began, is the truth you wanted to come out. The room grew silent as the board read the messages. Some covered their mouths in disbelief. Others exchanged shocked glances. Marcus's smirk faltered. You expect anyone to believe that? Emails can be fabricated. This is desperate, even for you. Ava tapped the spacebar. A short video appeared, grainy surveillance footage showing Marcus meeting a man in a dark sedan behind the building late one night. They exchanged an envelope. The date and timestamp matched one of the emails. This is from our security cameras, Ava said. We enhanced the footage this afternoon. For a long moment Marcus said nothing. Then, forcing a smile, he leaned back in his chair. So what? You have a video of me handing someone papers. That's not proof of fraud. Ava's calm remained unshaken. You're right, which is why we also have the bank records. Linda handed printed documents down the table. Each transaction corresponds to payments from the fake maintenance contracts, she said. All routed through an offshore account under your authorization. Total losses, $2.4 million. A gasp rippled through the boardroom. Marcus's charm vanished. You can't prove I benefited directly. Ava met his glare. The shell company's owner is your brother-in-law, Daniel Hale. We already confirmed it with financial authorities. His face drained of color. You had no right. I had every right, Ava interrupted firmly. You were stealing from the company, from my father's legacy. And when you realized I was getting close, you tried to destroy my credibility before I could expose you. The silence that followed was suffocating. Linda finally broke it. Marcus, this is beyond internal review. It's a criminal matter now. Marcus's voice cracked as he stood. You think you can just ruin me? I made this company what it is. Without me, Langford would have fallen apart years ago. Ava rose slowly, her tone quiet but sharp enough to cut through the air. Without integrity, Marcus, no company survives. You made people wait for your approval, your validation, your permission. But time's up. For a moment, Marcus just stared at her, fury and disbelief clashing in his eyes. Then he swept his papers off the table, scattering them like confetti. You'll regret this, he shouted, before storming out. No one moved until the sound of the door slamming echoed into silence. Ava turned toward the remaining board members. We'll cooperate with authorities. This company will rebuild, the right way. Linda placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You did what your father would have done. Ava exhaled, exhaustion flickering behind her strength. I just did what was right. As the others left, she remained alone, staring at the scattered papers on the floor. They weren't just evidence of corruption. They were pieces of a power struggle that had finally ended. She looked up at the clock. The second hand ticked steadily forward, and Ava smiled faintly. 2 hours, she whispered. That's all it took to change everything. The morning after Marcus Hale's downfall, Langford International buzzed with whispers. Employees walked the corridors in stunned silence. For months, they'd seen tension between Ava Langford and the company's powerful board member. But no one had imagined it would end in criminal charges. Ava stepped out of the elevator, calm and poised in a crisp white suit. Her eyes were tired, but her stride was steady. The night before, she'd filed a full report with the authorities. Marcus Hale had been taken into custody quietly at dawn, and news channels were already flashing headlines. Corporate scandal rocks Langford International. CEO exposes insider fraud. As she entered the executive floor, a hush fell over the room. People who once doubted her now stood, offering nods of respect. Her assistant, Lena, approached timidly. Miss Langford, the press is waiting in the conference room. They're asking for a statement. Ava gave a brief nod. Then let's give them one. She walked into the same room where Marcus once mocked her, where his arrogance had filled every corner. Now the air was different, heavier, but also cleaner. Dozens of reporters turned toward her as cameras clicked. She took her place behind the podium, fingers resting lightly on the wood. Yesterday, Ava began, her voice steady but heartfelt. Langford International faced one of the hardest tests in its history. A trusted member of our leadership was found guilty of betraying that trust. But today isn't about shame or blame. It's about rebuilding. The crowd listened in silence as she continued. This company was built on integrity, something my father, David Langford, taught me before I could even spell the word business. Mistakes were made, but the lesson remains clear. Leadership isn't about control, it's about responsibility. A young reporter raised his hand. Miss Langford, people are calling you a hero for exposing internal corruption. How do you feel about that? Ava smiled faintly. Heroes are people who do the right thing when it's hard. I just did what was necessary. The cameras flashed again. But Ava wasn't thinking about headlines. She was thinking about her father's old office, where a single framed quote still hung on the wall. The true measure of power is how you use it when no one is watching. After the conference, Ava retreated to her father's office for the first time in years. Dust danced in the sunlight that streamed through tall glass windows. She walked over to his desk, ran her hand along the wood, and sat down quietly. For a moment, memories washed over her. The sound of his laugh, the smell of his cologne, the way he used to look over his glasses when she made bold statements as a teenager. You've got a fire in you, Ava, he once said. Just promise me you'll use it to build, not burn. Tears welled up, but she smiled through them. I kept that promise, Dad, she whispered. There was a knock at the door. Linda stepped in, holding a folder. You'll want to see this. Inside were resignation letters from several board members who had sided with Marcus. They've chosen to step down, Linda explained. The rest voted unanimously to appoint you as permanent CEO. Ava blinked, stunned. Unanimous? Unanimous, Linda confirmed. And they've asked you to rebuild the board, your way. Ava sat back, letting the weight of it sink in. For years she'd fought to prove herself in a world that doubted her every move. Now the same world was asking her to lead it. Later that afternoon, she walked through the office floors personally, not as a distant CEO, but as a leader among her people. She stopped by desks, thanked employees for staying strong, listened to concerns. Where Marcus ruled through fear, Ava inspired through presence. In the break room, she found two interns whispering nervously. When they noticed her, they froze. "Don't stop," Ava said warmly. "If you have ideas for improving the company, my door is open." Their eyes widened. No CEO had ever said that before. By evening, she returned to her office overlooking the city. The skyline glowed gold under the setting sun. Ava stood by the window, hands clasped behind her back, her reflection merging with the glass, a woman transformed by fire but not burned by it. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number appeared. "You may have won this round, but don't think it's over. Some of us don't forget." Ava read it once, then deleted it calmly. She'd expected backlash. Power never fell quietly. But she was ready. As the lights in the building dimmed, she looked out once more at the horizon. The city stretched endlessly, alive and uncertain. But for the first time in years, she felt at peace. Because justice wasn't just served, it had been earned. A soft knock came again. Linda peeked in. "Heading home?" Ava turned with a tired smile. "Not yet. I want to draft a new ethics charter. We'll make sure something like this never happens again." Linda grinned. "I'll stay and help." Together they sat down, the glow of the desk lamp bathing the room in warm light. Two women rebuilding something broken, not for profit, not for revenge, but for legacy. When midnight arrived, Ava closed her laptop. "Tomorrow," she said softly, "Langford begins a new chapter." Linda nodded. "And it's got your name on it." Ava looked out at the sleeping city one last time and whispered, "No, it's got our name on it." Outside, the first light of dawn broke the horizon. A new day was beginning.